Secretary Slater does pass along his regrets, but he hopes to be in attendance, and he will be in attendance next month, so looking forward to that meeting. This morning, we're having our meeting in person at MDTA headquarters, and in accordance with the live streaming law, this meeting is being live streamed on the MDTA board webpage. For the record, Member Von Paris and Deb Sharpless will be joining us today via phone. I'd like to say welcome to the members and staff who are here with us today. As a reminder, I ask that anyone who is in the boardroom with us this morning to refrain from speaking unless you're presenting or answering a question to avoid background noise on the live stream. There are no members of the public, no elected officials, and no media who have pre-registered to comment at the meeting this morning. For those who are watching this meeting via live stream, we have posted the materials for today's meeting on the MDTA board webpage so you can follow along. Before we start the meeting, a couple of things. One, I'd like to thank Natalie and Ebony and the entire team for their continued great work to prepare for these meetings. It's always a great effort, and the end product comes out very well. And second, would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge that the MDTA Chief of Staff, Ms. Mary O'Keefe, is celebrating a birthday today. And she informed me it was 25, it was her 25th, which, for the record, she's 25, which earned me 2 cupcakes. So, I know, I could have gotten 3. So with that said, we will begin today's agenda. The first item on today's agenda is the approval of the minutes from the previous.
So moved, Member Cox.
All right, well, that was easy.
Second, Mario.
Second for, slow down. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, Member Von Paris beaming in from, welcome, sir. Okay.
Hi, how are you, sir?
Great. Yeah.
Oh, I just said aye.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he said, I heard aye. Yeah, thank you, Jim.
I'm sorry about that.
Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda is years of service recognition for 3 retired employees, and I'll flip it over to Executive Director Jim Ports.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We don't have any of our retirees here today.
Okay.
Unfortunately, they couldn't make it, but I will note for the record that Danita Black, Barbara Jones, and Gwen Lewis are all retiring from the MDTA, and we extend our best wishes to them in their retirement. And I also wanted to be further resolved that these resolutions be entered into the minutes of the MDTA board meeting of October 28, 2021, and a copy appropriately framed to be presented to all of these retirees as an expression of MDTA's board appreciation and esteem.
Thank you, sir, and thank you to the employees for their faithful service. Next on the agenda is item number 3, approval of contracts. We have Donna DeCerbo. It's MDTA 2019-02A, a comprehensive building and facility engineering, architectural design, construction, and miscellaneous consulting services. So, Donna, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you. For the record, Donna DeCerbo, Director of Procurement for the MDTA. I only have 1 contract today,
wow.
So I only need a little bit of your time. As you mentioned, this is for engineering, architectural design, construction, and miscellaneous consulting services contract. This was advertised in December of 2019. The services are for comprehensive building and facility engineering and architectural design, construction, and miscellaneous consulting services. We advertised in December of 16. We are awarding 4 contracts. The first contract is to Johnson, Murmuran, and Thompson, Inc., the second to AECom Design Services, the third for Whitman, Reckard and Associates, and the fourth to Rummel, Klepper, and Kahl. All of the contracts are for $4 million each. There was an MBE goal of 31% for this contract with sub-goals, and all of the firms have met or exceeded the MBE goal. There was a 1% VSBE goal, and all the firms have submitted and met this goal as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Any questions for Donna? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the contract as presented.
So moved.
Mario, second.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Member Gaines. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, Madam Secretary.
Thank you.
Next up will be Jeannie Marriott, item number 4, Consolidated Transportation Program, Process, and Additions. So, thank you, ma'am. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm here to provide a review of the CTP process and to request approval for additions to the final CTP that we'll be presenting next month. And this information was presented to the MDTA Capital Committee on October 7th. At that time, I did not ask for approval for the added projects, but I've been requested since then to be asking for your approval. So this will be just a little different from the presentation for the Capital Committee. Each year, MDOT issues the CTP report, which is Maryland's 6-year capital budget for transportation projects. The MDTA portion of the CTP presents its ongoing and new capital projects for a 6-year period for its facilities. The CTP is updated twice a year and brought to the board members for approval in June as the draft CTP and in November as the final CTP. After approval by the board members in June, the draft CTP is presented as part of the MDOT CTP tour to state and local officials and citizens throughout the state of Maryland for review and comment. On or before April 1st, Maryland counties and Baltimore City provide priority letters to inform MDOT, including MDTA, which transportation projects are most important to their local communities. And those letters are endorsed by county commissioners, council members, and/or the county executive as appropriate. During the CTP tour from September 15th to November 15th, the Secretary of Transportation visits each of the counties and Baltimore City to present the draft CTP. And this provides the local legislators and the public an opportunity to communicate their priorities and concerns in person. And representatives from each of the MDOT business units are also available to answer meetings. As of today, 18 of the CTP tour meetings have been completed, and the remaining 6 meetings will be held in November. The draft CTP is revised and submitted for MDTA board approval in November as the final CTP, and that becomes part of the governor's budget that is presented to the Maryland General Assembly in January. This process is required by statute and applies to MDTA as well as other MDOT business units. So just a quick review of where the new projects originate from: long-range capital needs, inspection findings, regulatory compliance, increased capacity needs, and as I mentioned before, the local priority letters and legislative requests that we get from the counties and Baltimore City. And then, of course, they also have additional input at the meetings, at the tour meetings. So the fiscal year 22 to 27 final CTP to be presented for approval in November includes 12 new projects. And those are on attachment A, if you want to look at that. And you'll notice that I have included the funding. So this is the initial funding for these contracts because I'll be asking for your approval. And so the projects that say they're funded for engineering only, the construction money is being held in the reserves until design reaches 60%, and we have a more accurate estimate to be entered in as construction funding. So the first 2 are, or the first 4 are multi-area contracts. There's on-call electrical and intelligent transportation services, on-call structural repairs, which is 2 contracts at $15 million each, and those are funded for both engineering and construction. On-call civil repairs, funded for engineering only at this time. The wash base, salt barn, and fueling facilities at Perryville. This is a project to design and construct a new facility that's needed to meet the increasing maintenance needs along the I-95 Kennedy Highway corridor. Then also, we're going to remodel the Maryland State Police Building, which is a project to replace the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning units and the metal roofing system. So these need to be replaced to address water infiltration and high vac malfunction issues. And then at the Fort McHenry Tunnel, there's a campus fuel oil conversion. This is actually part of an authority-wide life cycle removal and replacement of underground fuel tanks. And the replacement is either to replace the below-ground tank with an above-ground tank or to convert to a different fuel source. And then the Fort McHenry Tunnel East Vent Building facade and roof replacement. And those are also needed to prevent water infiltration and to keep the building safe. Fort McHenry Tunnel South traffic relief improvements. This project is funded for planning only. It's at the very beginning stages. A congestion and safety improvement study will be conducted to evaluate the alternative solutions. And then after the selected alternatives will be implemented, and at that time, we will add the design funding and the construction funding. At the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel, the maintenance auto building, high vac and roof replacement. At the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel, also the resurfacing north and south of the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel. And the last new project is to replace the ICC deck overlighting. And so this is one of the very first maintenance projects or maintenance type projects that we have for the ICC, since that's still such a new facility. And this will be replacing actually some lights that we can't even replace now. We have to go to a different type because they're no longer available. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And I am requesting your approval to add those.
Thank you, Jeannie. Appreciate the presentation. As you can see, this matches up with what we have been saying throughout our CTP tours with the system preservation and maintenance. You guys have identified those and made that a priority as we move forward. So that's matching what we do. And having participated in about a third of those CTP meetings so far, I'm looking forward to November when they're finished. They are very helpful and very useful, and it's only because of the work that the teams do to be able to prepare us for that. So I want to thank everyone for that. With that, do we have any questions for Jeannie?
I got a question,
Yes, sir.
Jeannie. Jeannie, it seems most of these added projects are just for engineering, which is, I guess, a really small percentage of the cost. So in about a year after, how long will it take? A year to find out what the final cost will be? And then can we fit them into the budget, since we're just budgeting, I don't know, these are what, 20% of the cost?
Well, you'll see next month when I present the final CTP that the construction funding for all of these projects has already been put into the allocated reserves.
Okay.
And we don't put it into the project until we get the 60% design, because it's you just really need to have a better
Right.
look at what's going on before you put the dollars in for construction.
But by having it in that other category, it's in the budget.
Yes, it is included in the budget.
That was my question.
Great. Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions for Jeannie?
Just one question to follow up to that. So are these additional projects displacing other capital projects that we had originally intended and approved?
Oh, no. These are adding new ones, and the final CTP includes also the ongoing projects. Nothing's been eliminated.
Okay.
So we do have a lot of system preservation projects.
Sure.
You know, there's a lot more than this. We've just been working on them for a while.
Right, exactly. Any, Member Von Paris, you have any questions? Just want to make sure we're able to catch you.
Not at this time.
Great, thank you.
Bill.
Sometimes we forget when you're not in the room, so, when someone's on the line, so I promise not to leave you out. Okay, hearing no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the item as presented.
So moved. Member Rosen?
Member Rosen?
Second, Member Carroll.
Second by Member Carroll. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Jeannie. Appreciate it.
you.
Next up, will be item number 5, update on fiscal year 21 Independent Auditors Service Organization Control Report. And Deb Sharpless will be presenting, and I believe she is on the line.
Morning, members. Please let me know if you have any difficulties hearing me. Chantel Green is in the room and can also assist me with this presentation.
Great.
Under tab 5 is a presentation that was prepared by SB and Company. This presentation was presented to the Finance Committee at the October meeting earlier this month. To begin, the SOC 1 audit is an audit that's performed largely for financial statement purposes. And at the end of the day, what is expressed through an opinion is whether or not the data that comes out of this particular system can be relied upon for financial statement purposes. That's why we have the audit. So I'm going to jump to slide 3, which is an overview. The first was the audit period was from July 1st to April 19th. Now, normally this would be a full year audit. The reason that this says the 19th, we had transitioned on the 29th, and we had some transactions that were shutting down prior to our actual go-live date. This was part of the dark period. They reviewed 13 control objectives. The report had no qualifications. Sometimes in layman's terms, we say it's a clean opinion. And they tested complementary controls that are performed by MDTA. On slide 4 are the findings that are listed. In some respects, this is a little bit more findings than what we've had in the past. In other respects, they're similar to what often you can find in a SOC audit. One of the things about a SOC audit is materiality is not considered. If something is off by a handful of dollars, it's either perfect or it's an exception. There's no latitude in the middle. And you can see that on a couple things, like the 4th bullet down, they talk about a difference between $10 and $22. And when we move to slide 5, there were some areas that could be tested because at the time of the audit, it was after transition for our go-live date, and some documents had already been passed over to TransCore, but they were boxed up and hadn't been scanned electronically yet. And then the office was shut down, so they couldn't look at physical access and sign-in sheets. That wasn't available. And then on slide 6, as well as 7, is looking at areas where we've had exceptions in the prior year and indicating whether or not any exceptions were identified. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Deb? Okay. Hearing none, I was going to ask for approval, but this is just an update, so I'm glad I went back and checked the agenda. Thanks, Deb. Next up, Chantel will stay at the table here. We have item 6, legislative reports submitted to the General Assembly. It's the MDTA trucks traversing Francis Scott Key Bridge without crossing the Key Bridge. Quite a name for the report. Chantel, great seeing you again. It's only been a few days.
Yes.
We saw it last week.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
The floor is yours.
Good morning. For the record, Chantel Green, Director of Finance here at the Authority. So you should have in your materials the report. So in recent years, legislation has been introduced that would prohibit the authority from charging a toll if a vehicle goes through one of its toll facilities at a toll plaza adjacent to a bridge but does not cross the bridge. While the legislature took no action regarding the proposed legislation, language was included in the 2021 budget bill restricting funding for the port pending the submission of a report that provides the projected tolls paid by truck drivers who do not cross the Key Bridge, a discussion of how other tolling authorities deal with similar issues, and options for addressing truck driver complaints about paying a toll even though they don't cross the bridge. Like I said, enclosed in your materials, you'll find a copy of the report that was submitted in response to the language. The report begins on page 2 by providing some background, noting that the FSK facility is a statutorily defined transportation facility project, and that the authority retains the sole legal authority to fix, revise, charge, and collect tolls in Maryland. The Key Bridge facility is nearly 11 miles in length, with the Key Bridge itself being about 1.9 miles. The facility extends over 3 bodies of water, and tolls have been collected at the midpoint location since it opened to traffic in 1977. Regarding the projected tolls paid by truck drivers who do not cross the bridge, page 3 of the report notes that in 2016, the authority, in collaboration with the Maryland Motor Truck Association, implemented a toll rate discount for trucks with 3 or more axles when crossing Bear Creek and using Broning Highway without crossing the bridge. The discounted truck toll rate is $2 per axle, with a discount of 25 to 60% from the toll rate for crossing the Key Bridge. Total truck traffic of 3 axles or more amounts to about $660,000 in tolls annually while traversing the Bear Creek and Broning Highway without crossing the Key Bridge. That equates to approximately $196,000 in annual savings for Maryland Easy Pass trucks that cross the Bear Creek and Broning Highway only, with those only movements. Non-Maryland Easy Pass account holders paid 85% more in tolls for the same number of trips when traversing the Bear Creek and Broning Highway compared to Maryland Easy Pass account holders, thereby demonstrating a direct benefit to many local trucks that frequent the port and Trade Point Atlantic. Furthermore, trucks with 5 or more axles with a Maryland Easy Pass account are eligible to receive additional savings through the post-usage and supplemental rebate programs. Regarding how other toll authorities deal with similar issues outside of Maryland, page 4 of the report notes that there are 121 toll roadway facilities in the United States that operate in either a closed or open system. Most toll roadway facilities are closed systems. Closed systems do not allow for any free movements, resulting in a toll charge to customers whenever traveling on any portion of a toll facility, regardless of the distance or major infrastructure traversed. By contrast, about 25% of toll roadway facilities are open systems, allowing for certain free movements and generally range from very little free movements to some free movements. While the authority operates both open and closed toll roadway facilities, free movements are regarded as a credit negative by rating agencies. Therefore, the amount of free movement is typically limited by tolling agencies whenever feasible. The authority has managed this credit negative perspective of open systems by not expanding the portion of free movement at its toll facilities. Tolling the Bear Creek and Broning Highway only movement is an example of consistently tolling sections of the roadway that have been tolled since initial construction. Regarding the options for addressing truck drivers' complaints that they are paying a toll despite not crossing the bridge, beginning on page 5 of the report notes that the authority feels that the most productive option is truck driver education. Education begins by explaining to customers that the authority is responsible for the entire Key Bridge facility, which includes 22 bridges other than the Key Bridge, 174 small and ancillary structures, 38.5 lane miles of highway, and 1.5 lane miles of Broning Highway, and that the entire facility is maintained exclusively by toll dollars. Over the past 5 years, approximately $2.1 million has been spent on maintenance, repair, and inspection of the Bear Creek section of the Key Bridge facility. And within the next few years, major projects totaling between $80 to $90 million are required to maintain the Bear Creek section in a state of good repair. The authority's trust agreement with its bondholders requires that the authority collect tolls for the entire facility, including the bridges, approaches, entrance plazas, interchanges, and toll stations. If the authority does not collect tolls, it is depriving its bondholders of a property interest in those revenues that were previously collected. Other educational outreach efforts noted in the report include an educational PowerPoint presentation that was distributed to businesses with large fleets, outlining the financial benefit of an Easy Pass account. And lastly, the authority's Easy Pass Customer Service Division is staffed and with experienced customer service representatives who are available to work with both individual commercial vehicle drivers and commercial vehicle companies to educate them on how the FSK commercial vehicle turnaround discount works with a valid Maryland Easy Pass account. And with that, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you. You made, one of your points you made in there is often lost on people, the fact that it's not just a bridge or a tunnel that's involved with the tolling. I mean, there's everything that leads up to and around. It's a system. So, I mean, the education piece is great, so.
It's like 95.
Yeah, it's just like 95.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, so that's fantastic. Thanks. Any questions for Chantel? Yes, sir.
What's the feedback at this point going the session? Have you heard any feedback from any legislators at this point, Chantel, or anybody?
I have not personally
Have you-
referred to
So what we've heard, Member Cox, is that the legislature may call us in for a briefing and/or a hearing. We haven't gotten all the details on that yet, but we expect that they may bring us in on the Senate side. Again, that hasn't been confirmed, but DLS also sent out a letter basically describing some of the points that Chantel just went over. And I thought they did a very fair job on detailing the information for the senators, and I think that may squash some of the pushback. But this is an issue that comes up every year.
Every year.
And so the JCR, so this year they required a JCR, and they actually withheld $100,000 from the port's budget until this was submitted. So they just released, actually the letter also asked them to release the funding from the budget, the letter from DLS. So apparently they were satisfied with the report.
Yeah, that just came through, what, you shared it with us last week?
2 days ago?
Yeah,
Yeah.
late last week, early this week, so that's good. So the money should be flowing over to the port here pretty soon, so, hopefully. Any, yes, sir?
Just one question. So if this bill was approved, what would be the ramifications from our bondholders' perspective, since it's made clear that this would be negatively viewed, since we obviously would have less revenue to support the bond?
I think you just answered it. It would absolutely be negatively viewed because state law actually gives us the authority to set tolls and all those parameters for operation and maintenance and everything else that we have to do according to the trust agreement. And anytime the legislature involves themselves in making some of these decisions for us, it is absolutely negatively viewed by the credit agencies. And we do stress that point.
It's been going on, and you know, it's been going on for 40 years, the same type of legislation. I mean, it's, you know, and when I chaired the committee down there, you had to, you know, obviously, look at the truckers, man, you got a real, you know, real valid point. All of a sudden, when you get the information from this organization and you understand what Chantel just said, then you can understand why these tolls need to be collected there.
Absolutely. Any other questions for Chantal? Thank you so
just,
much. Oh, yeah, it's member Von Perry. I almost forgot about you, after I promised.
Feel a little compelled to comment on this a little bit, coming from the trucking industry. Part of our services is trucking, but you know, what I like about it is the fact that we're trying to work with industry, the local transportation industry. And I know Jim has a good relationship with Louis Campion at the Maryland Motor Truck Association, trying to work things out. I like the fact that there's good communication back and forth, our openness to listen and to try to work things out. I don't know where it's going to all go, but I think that from my perspective on it in the industry, I think it's I commend the team at MDTA for trying to work with Maryland Motor Truck Association and addressing some of the concerns they have and trying to work out something that is fair. But I'm saying that I'm sure there's more has to be done here, but I commend the people who have been working and communicating and being open to listen. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions for Chantal? Thank you. Okay, next up, item number 7, annual update on the structure inspection program at Tequesta Mari and Lillian Cedrak. Come on down. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the MDTA board. My name is, for the record, Takesta Amara. I'm the Deputy Director of Engineering, and I oversee structures, environmental, and facilities disciplines. With me here is Lillian Sidrak. She manages the structures inspection program, which is under the structures discipline. So she's been serving in the leadership role for almost a year. Wow. I guess a year and a week, I guess, to the date. So she's been doing great, leading this big program for us and changing it and using new technology and improving it. So we'll report today
Thank
on
you.
the annual facilities inspection and provide you with the fiscal year 2021 updates. I'll let Lillian start with the first few slides, and then I'll follow up with the next half.
Can you hear me? It's a pleasure to be here today, and thank you very much for having me. I've been with MDTA for 11 years, so I'm very familiar with the inspections program and its importance for our drivers and the safety of the and health and well-being of our assets. As you know, the MDTA Bridge and Tunnel Inspection Program determines whether our facilities are maintained in good repair, working order, and condition. And it's performed with a mission to provide safe facilities that keep traffic moving and provide public confidence. And in addition, we have to fulfill requirements. The requirements are in accordance with federal highway, with the National Bridge Inspection Standards, and of course with our trustees. And I'll touch up on that shortly. MDTA, in addition, has its own engineering and inspection requirements, and those requirements exceed the current industry standards. So we hold our consultants at a higher level than many other states in fulfilling requirements in accordance with the NBIS to exceed them. With that, we develop our own inspection procedures, and those are listed in our inspections manual, which are consistently updated and maintained. As you know, that the 10th supplemental agreement was issued on April 7th of 2021 between MDTA and our trustee. That we provide independent consultant firms with knowledgeable expertise within the inspections and engineering program for transportations to go out on our facilities and provide us with data and information that the MDTA program can then assess, utilize, and provide upon the request of our trustees, formalized reports, which are called executive summaries, which we submit annually. The 2021 hands-on inspection was completed this last cycle for all of our signature bridges, sign structures, low-level lights, and camera poles. They were hands-on. As you know, we alternate every 2 years, hands-on and for signatures and for workhorse. We also implement a risk-based interim inspection. That's to target the bridges or the assets that have higher priority findings that we feel should be revisited on off years. And those were done for workhorse bridges, culverts, high mass lighting, our toll plazas, underground stormwater management facilities, noise walls, retaining walls. A hydrographic survey was performed this last cycle on the Bay Bridge. That gives us a basic, information on what our channel and stream bed looks like and how it fluctuates. And then a visual inspection was performed on traffic, roadway, and safety features. Post inspections, we provide all the requested data, and our annual inspection, annual bridge and tunnel inspection data is provided to Federal Highway on time. And that's the key, is to provide everything on time and meet their requirements. We want to remain in compliance always. We provide the annual executive summaries to our trustees. We compile all of our structures' asset data and provide it to the MDOT Asset Management Work Group. Our transportation asset management plan is provided to Federal Highway through the MDOT State Highway Administration. The annual MFR, the attainment report, our renewal, insurance renewal costs, they're provided to multiple divisions upon request in accordance with, and also to performance measure drivers. Bridge load rating data, bridge vertical clearance data, all of that's coordinated with the Maryland Motor Carrier Division annually and the permit hauling program. Other structures and information are always provided upon request. Every year we hold a facility kickoff meeting, and this is important because it brings all the consultants that we've hired to the program to the table. And we say, okay, you've completed this last cycle. What can we improve upon? What did we find, and how can we get better? In addition, as a structures inspection program manager, we try to introduce new technology. The Federal Highway is pushing for that, and that's something that the MDTA program is looking at right now. So last cycle, we kicked off it virtually, unfortunately, but we made it very interactive, and we provided direction to all of our team leaders on how to approach findings and how to make our inspection program and communication easier given the COVID pandemic and so forth and us working remotely. It was a very successful learning experience for everybody that attended last cycle virtually. This year we plan on having it in person. In addition, we hold bi-weekly meetings and we bring in the JVs, PMs, and we ask and we discuss with them findings from our inspections. We discuss with them some safety-related issues. We talk about traffic and safety on the roadways, maintenance of traffic and their setups, perhaps maybe audit findings. And we hold them accountable to some of the things that we find. Perhaps it could be budget-related, it could be just inspection reporting related. But we always maintain communication, and that's the important thing. Our efforts in this program is teamwork, and it's very important that we have that, especially in today's world. I was asked to attend the presentation at a middle school at Morgan State University, for middle school students at Morgan State University, and I personally love doing mentorship. I was able to bring some light into the kids that are actually pursuing engineering by providing a presentation of how we do our inspections, what it requires to be safe, introducing them to different MOT equipment, stay alert so no one gets hurt kind of thing. Everybody started walking out saying that. So that was really fun. And it also exposed MDTA to these, to the children there to kind of want to know more. And hopefully next cycle we can actually bring them on board and take them for a tour, have them see inspections hands-on. Thank you. I'm going to pass it over to Kester, who will discuss our findings.
Thank you, Lilian,
Yes.
for the presentation. I will briefly go over some of our findings from the 2021 inspections. I will not read everything. I'll just, just briefly state the conditions of each asset. So, as you know, we'll start with our biggest asset, which is the Bay Bridge facility, the two bridges. Overall, the Bay Bridge is in satisfactory condition. There are some defects. I will not just read this, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them at the end. The Nice Bridge, this is referring to the old one, which is being replaced. So it's in an overall fair condition. But once we get the new bridge, we will be having an excellent condition bridge. So look forward to that.
Better than excellent. We got a lot of people checking. It's going to be
What's up and built in most excellent.
most excellent. There we go.
Moving on to Tidings Bridge, it's in an overall satisfactory condition. So we separate the Tiding Bridge from the JFK facility because its size and complexity, and it receives hands-on, while the rest of the JFK facilities receive risk-based interim inspections. Haddam Bridge is also in an overall satisfactory condition. Moving forward to the Key Bridge, also in satisfactory condition. So as you can see, most of our signature bridges are in satisfactory condition, which is, really good when you compare it to maybe some of the other assets, even, the state highways. It's, we try to maintain what we call a 6 or better. 6 is out of 10, out of 9 is satisfactory. So we're happy to maintain our assets in those conditions. Moving on to the tunnels on page 10, the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel is in an overall satisfactory condition. So a lot of rehab has been done. Our fans, ventilation system has been, improved with, a large project. So we are happy to see that. The Fort McHenry Tunnel is in an overall satisfactory condition. And we have an ongoing project on the fans, a big project to improve the ventilation system on that as well. The next few pages are about the what we call ancillary structures. The sign structures received hands-on inspection, and also the AET gantries are in an overall, generally speaking, overall good condition. Moving on to low-level lights and camera poles, also in good condition. Our workhorse bridges, they received not the hands-on inspection, but the interim inspection, in which, as Lillian mentioned previously, we selectively inspect areas of concern or any areas of previous findings which we need to look at. So overall, our bridges are in satisfactory condition. High-mast lights are in good condition. Toll plaza scales are in satisfactory condition. So that's the overall condition briefly for you, but the last page shows the condition ratings. As I mentioned earlier, we use a scale of 0 to 9, 0 being, a failed one or close to traffic, 9 being excellent. So you can see the pie charts here. We divide the bridge in 3 components: the deck, the riding surface, that's the deck condition at the top left, and it's supported by what we call the superstructure. Those are the beams and girders, and we rate those separately, and that in turn is supported by the substructure, which goes to the foundation. So those are separately rated. So you may have a bridge with a deck in, good condition, but the substructure or superstructure may be in fair condition. So we plan different projects based on these conditions. So that shows you the 7, what you see as purple, and the 6 that you see in green is the majority of our bridges. So we have less reds and orange, so which is a good thing. So with that, conclude our presentations. If you have questions for me or Lillian, would be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you. Great presentation. Any questions for the team?
Right.
Yep.
So at what stage do we,
Mr. Chairman.
oh, go ahead, John.
Go ahead, sir.
I promise I won't be asking too many more questions, but I just I wanted to get clear on one thing on this. I know this is focused on the structural side of the bridges and so forth, but just a quick question. If we all know back, I guess in June of 2020, we had the fire underneath of one of our facilities on that Moravia Road, one ramp southbound. And so I know this is focused more on structural, but where do we handle that, inspecting to make sure that there are no hazardous materials or things such as we experienced back in June of 2020, so we don't have that happen again? I know this is bridge inspection. This report's about structural, but where do we pick up that to make sure that we're protecting our assets?
All right, thank you for the question. Yeah, actually, when we take the FHWA training to inspect this bridge, there's a two-week-long training, and it's called in-service bridge safety inspection training. So it includes both the structural and safety issues. And as part of our inspection manual, we have specific criteria to determine the structural evaluation and also the safety one. So if we inspect a sign bridge, and if we think that something's going to fall, that's a safety issue. In pertaining to these specific fire hazards or materials stored under the bridge or near the bridge, there were a few incidents in the past few years which following which FHWA provided guidance. One of them is a large material stockpile in Delaware, which resulted in a big displacement in the bridge. So we look out for material stored near or under a bridge, whether it's flammable or not. Additionally, the Atlanta fire brought attention to potential of fire under bridges or near bridges. So following that, we're looking into anything that could be flammable near bridges. So we provided guidance to our inspectors to look for anything, whether it's flammable or not, and report it to us. And as a follow-up to that, in case of flammable materials, we perform specialized studies with experts to determine how much risk there is to our assets. So we do, in short, we do look into this as part of the inspection.
I think part of John's question may.
Nope.
I think part of John's question may also be: is there any environmental problem as a result of that we're not typically looking for when we're doing our structural inspections? But after that, is there something residual in the ground that we're going to be responsible for because of somebody else's screw up? I think that's part of his question too.
Yeah, that we typically, a lot of our findings, we do the structural part within ourselves, but we coordinate with our own environmental engineering group and also the Office of Risk Management to determine what MDTA is supposed to do, because we may not, as structural
That's your
engineers,
thing.
not know.
Sure.
So we
Calling your team.
do coordinate with everyone who may be the expert in that area.
I also want to say that in many cases, we may not actually own the land.
Right.
The land may be owned by Baltimore City, but we may have our bridge pilings there. There are situations where we work very closely with MDE on any of those situations, like, for example, Coper, that was put into the ground many, many years ago. And if you know anything about Coper, when it gets wet, it starts moving, and it starts moving things. It heaves, what they call heaves. And we work very closely with MDE on any of those structures. So, yeah, there's a whole program with MDE and MOUs with these various locations who may own the property and not us.
Member
Yeah,
Gaines, you had a question.
Yeah, I had a question. I like these inspection ratings. It really summarizes everything nicely. At what point do any of these bridges start to get into the inspection, into the repair mode when we start to engineer them? Is it satisfactory, or is it when we get to fair? Or is it vary depending on the structure you're talking about, I guess, but.
That's a good question. As part of assets, I usually try to think of our assets like cars. So
Right.
for cars, you do a major, work on it, but you keep doing this periodic maintenance. So bridges are like that, in which case you do this periodic maintenance and small repairs to avoid the deterioration. So you keep it longer. So we do both. When it's really, in a bad condition, you cannot do repairs. You have to replace a portion
Right.
of it. But even if it's a 6 or a 7 or in satisfactory condition, there may be, minor things that we need to do
Sure.
to avoid
keep it there, yeah.
Right.
it from deteriorating. So we use Our repair recommendations have a rating system themselves. There's what we call priority 1. Actually, there's an emergency, but there's priority 1, and there's priority 2 and priority 3. So priority 2 and 3 are done like when we have a big contract. It's like system preservation.
Right.
But priority 1s are those kind of more immediate needs, and we use task orders we have on-call contractors, and then we package those task orders and do those.
Sure.
But when it's a major deck replacement or bridge replacement, then it's probably when it's below
Right.
5 or somewhere around that.
I see that Mr. Pines has
Yeah.
made his way down a couple
Yeah,
chairs.
go ahead.
I just wanted to add one more point. Yeah, I think Takesta summed it up well, but there is something like we've been giving you regular updates at the major project slides
Right.
on, for example, the eastbound deck project that's in the pipeline. You see the ratings are satisfactory, so you might think to yourself, well, why do we need to do that project then? Well, the way that the ratings are done, it's for the overall structure. So you have areas that are good and areas that are less, and it's kind of an averaging of the averages, and it gets rolled up into one big number. So when we're putting out projects, we're trying to keep those ratings in each of the smaller areas at a good level so that the overall rating stays at that 6 or better that Takesta noted. So you're going to see, like when we do the deck project in the deck truss area, if you looked at that rating for that span, it would be worse than other areas of the bridge. So the way that these ratings are done, it's down at an element level where you're looking at the individual member rating that gets assigned, and then it rolls up into what's the span rating and then what's the bridge rating. And so what we're providing in this presentation is an overall number to give you the big picture. But there are areas, as he noted, that need constant work because they are at a lesser rating than the bigger picture.
Right. And then I'm sure, just like anything we've all, as homeowners and car owners, that at some point it reaches where the preventative maintenance is just no longer for a particular section, and you just have to transition to a full fix, but because you can only tweak things so many times, so.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's like when your house, you'll replace a roof, you'll replace a siding, you'll replace a lot of things, but sometimes it's a tear down. Right?
Exactly.
But two examples of that are the flats, which is on the south side of the harbor tunnel. For many years, they tried to maintain that, and we finally had to replace it. And the other big one was the viaduct, which is the north side of the harbor tunnel. That bridge was actually structurally deficient. Absolutely, when it meets that criteria, it has to be replaced.
Right.
And so we replaced that bridge. Also, it's our only structurally deficient bridge in our entire system. And we replaced it, took almost 3 years. We actually got it 6 months early, but it took almost 3 years to do.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Member Cox, I saw you reaching for your button.
Going back, I know Will and I have talked about this before, but the Marlboro Harbor Tunnel, the satisfactory rating, and the items that you have on here, that, all the work that was done, and we still have more issues there. Well, is that the situation?
Candidly, I was curious about some of the notes, like the tile.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm guessing, and let the professionals here respond, but I think it's likely that the timing of when the inspection was done, so when the inspectors are going to report exactly what they see. So just the fact that we have a contract that's in the pipeline to fix it doesn't allow us to change the reality of what it is when they show up and do the inspection. So I'm guessing that
That's
this
absolutely
happened
right.
to be that they did the inspection before we had finished the work.
And there were like ongoing contracts during the time of inspection. So the inspection is a snapshot in time. So there are areas where they were probably repaired, but there was no access to it because of the overall construction going on. So it's a dynamic inspection, especially when you're in the tunnel with all the components from structural to mechanical and electrical. So there's a lot of work there that, might have been reported, but was inaccessible at that time. So we hope that by the next inspection or by the risk-based inspection, the contractor clears out of the way, we can go back and get in there and get the information that we need.
Yeah, we only let them tell us we're good when they visually verify themselves that it's good. You don't want somebody to say, oh yeah, we did that, you're good, don't worry about it,
Yeah.
and then suddenly the bridge falls down, right? That you've got to make sure that you see it yourself, and as the certified inspector, it's done. And so many of the things that they reported in the next inspection round would be updated, and then you
Right.
should see the improvement in the rating.
So, just as a follow-up, because I actually had that one highlighted on my computer also as a question, because I know that we just did a lot of major work in the Harbor Tunnel. Can we get the information on when the inspection was done? Because when I see minor surface cracks at roadway wearing surface, I know we replaced that already. And if the inspection occurred after we replaced it, I'm concerned. If the inspection happened prior to us replacing it, I'm less concerned. But I'm also, I had the same question for missing or impacted ceiling tiles. And so I'm trying to figure out when that inspection was done. I do know that we had some trucks that came in and
That's-
destroyed some of
Yep.
that right at the beginning because they were too high. And I had made the point before that we should absolutely go after that trucking company, i.e. their insurance company, to pay for those repairs. And I'm not sure we ever did that, or if we're in the process of doing that, but anytime these things occur, we should absolutely be doing that. And I just
And-
want to get that information.
Yes, and Lynn from our insurance, her and I are in contact a lot over these impacts. Operations is out there, I'm out there, our inspectors are out there. Information is gathered, police reports are put in the system, and what we try to do is obtain that incidence number. That's how she can track going after their insurance. That incidence number is really important. One, it helps us to track the task order development, which means every time we want to repair a ceiling panel or a piece of concrete or a tile that was impacted by a truck, it goes and rolls back into that incidence number. And that incidence number rolls back to a dollar amount that's being accrued by, one, the inspector who went out there for the emergency, two, the design consultant who's going to repair it, and three, ultimately, the construction cost. All of that rolls in, and that's where we're able to track the funds and the log of information for that specific incident. So just because we had one incident, say, related to tile, doesn't preclude us from having another incidence number related to the ceiling panel, and so forth. The minor cracking in the concrete deck is a normal shrinkage kind of temperature cracking that occurs after a new overlay was put in. It's nothing that is detrimental. That entire area was latex modified. I'm sure you know it was overlaid. And when we say minor, it's almost like you can consider it as being very minute or negligible. But it was looked at, and that's the important thing, is that, we're looking at things.
It's good that they're finding the minor things.
Yes.
And the follow-up question would be, that's what, this whole thing with Harbor Tunnel, and we've been in with the tiles, right? What's the recovery? Is recovery low, high, in between, as far as incidents where the truck hits and damages the tile? I mean, what's our recovery rate? Do you know?
To add to what she said in terms of the tracking, what happens is when we respond to this emergency, we work with finance to designate a charging number. So everyone that's working on that response or design will be charging to that number, so that finance knows, how much that incident is costing us.
We can get that information.
Good.
That
Yep.
comes from Lynn Fry.
Right. Remember, that incidence number is, right, that incidence
Okay.
number that I had mentioned is linked to a insurance recoverable number. And Lynn is constantly on top of it, and there are backlogs of them. So I see, yeah.
I'll say too, the team has a little bit of an incentive, right? These types of emergencies are typically not budgeted, and so they have to live within their operating budget means, and so they want to recover the money so that they can get done the work that they had planned to do. So that we have our own incentives for pushing for insurance recovery. I was going to suggest too, Takesta, I know you guys are working on a little bit of an evaluation on overheight.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was talking about.
You were going to go over that,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Just
Jim
to-
and I has been, with Lillian, studied why we get these impacts, and look into it and previous, incidents, the history, what we did, and also what others are doing to mitigate this or prevent it. So we're working on that, and we'll have some actions that we will do, not just to respond reactively, but also proactively prevent that from happening as much as we can. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you, but any other questions? Oh, you were reaching for your computer there, Member Cox. I thought you were going for the button. Hearing no other questions, we will now turn it over to item number 8, third generation toll collection current operations update. And Mr. Pines can slide back down 3 more chairs instead of 2 this time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Great discussion.
Bear with me a moment, sorry, just get my notes up here. Okay, well, again, good morning. For the record, my name is Will Pines, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for MDTA. And I'm here to give the regular monthly update on the ETC operations, the current tolling program. So getting right in, again, much of the content in the slide is similar to the prior meetings with some updates on the numbers and stats of where we're doing. Last several meetings, we've kind of talked about the status of the modifications on the prior contracts, the schedule and modification negotiations continue and are ongoing. The back office vendor is continuing to work on their schedule and showing that the completion of their sprints will be in the spring of next year. Most of the releases that have been completed to date have been continuing to focus on higher priority items that directly impact customers and/or the MDTA operations or the vendor's call center operations to, again, help deal with our call wait times. The contractor is using an agile project management approach that has a 3-week sprint cycle, and they had initially shown that schedule would be completed in November of 2022, near the end of next year. Jim pushed really hard to get them to move that up, and again, they're focused on meeting the spring delivery at this point. Since providing the schedule, the contractor has been successfully meeting that schedule to date, and a little bit later in the presentation, I'll talk about some of the specific accomplishments that they've been doing with releases. The draft modifications that are with the vendors, they are including a non-compensable time extension for the delays in the implementation of the go-live, and also to modify the contracts in terms of money that is associated with the conversion to all electronic tolling and the backlog quantity changes for the contract. Essentially, the quantity that was originally planned to be processed in the NG, the old system, that was deferred to the new system, and so this contract has to process that additional quantity. The negotiation includes no cost changes except for those quantity updates, And these changes will require the MDTA board, BPW, and DO-IT approval. And again, we've been continuing to work with DO-IT, the Department of IT, on their approvals kind of on a rolling basis. And so far, they seem happy with us on our draft plan. Moving on to our key focus areas, again, probably the biggest thing update since the last meeting is that we plan to go live with the highway speed all electronic tolling at our JFK facility next month. With the completion, MDTA will only have 3 facilities remaining that will be awaiting the highway speed AET conversion. That would be the FMT, Harry Nice Bridge, and the Baltimore Harbor Tunnel facility. Fort McHenry Tunnel and Nice are planned to convert next year, but the Harbor Tunnel is awaiting the completion of the NEPA study before the design and construction for that facility can commence. We will continue to, this is going to be an ongoing thing all the way up until that spring period. We're going to close out artifacts and reports that are part of the actual design development. As they complete these agile sprints, you got to document what was done and make sure that everybody understands how the system is working in terms of having that documented. Backlog remains a key focus, and I'll talk a little bit more about that on the backlog slide and also with some of the updates that I have on the call center. We're also working closely with the vendors to identify issues to ensure the system is meeting the KPIs and that timely maintenance is occurring to lead towards the final system acceptance. Due to some underperformance on KPIs, the SAT approval, our system acceptance testing approval, was not granted to our lane side vendor, and we required additional testing from them. So that was originally planned to be done this month. It's more likely to be done next month based on where they are right now. This includes the need to resolve reporting and QA/QC structure concerns that we have had with them. The MDTA finance, IT, and operations teams continue to work together collaboratively to define the roles and responsibilities on administering the contract going forward, and in particular, performance management for those KPIs. And we did successfully complete both partnering meetings recently with the vendors. That's something that we had some really good action items come out of it. Learned that, our team internally felt like there were some communication breakdowns on, frustrations that we were late and that had some resentment feelings and things just that we were able to put out on the table and kind of talk through that and get better communication channels going forward so that we can make this as efficient as possible working together. So there were action items that were identified. Like an easy example is that as these agile sprints are done, we at the management level are making sure that as many people as possible know what is actually being accomplished within each build. And so that's something that I'm going to continue to report out to the board so that you know what kinds of website improvements they're actually making with these sprints. The next slide is about the call center. From a risk tracking standpoint, we're closely monitoring the metrics on the call center. And as we reported last month, not a whole lot of improvement there. We're still seeing very long wait times. Backlog processing is really the major driver of the recent call volume. As noted on the slide, the average wait times have been in excess of an hour and a half. There are days that are worse than others, but that's kind of the average period. Since the CIC opened, there have been challenges with retention of staff. As we noted last month, they had initially started with 160 employees at the go live in April, and that had fallen to 60 employees by August. So retention has been a really significant concern, attrition of employees. They, in September, lost 29 employees. So it's just an ongoing challenge. We did, out at IBTTA, Jim and I went out there, and I was able to talk to several other agencies to kind of hear what their call center experience is like. And these wait times and attrition issues are very common in the industry right now coming out of the pandemic. The reasons why are uncertain, but, we've talked about unemployment checks and things like that. I don't want to speculate too much on why, but the reality is attrition continues to be a problem with the call centers.
Well, just real quickly, so today there's 77, and they're looking to bring another 35 in currently, and they're also looking at overflow for New Jersey, a New Jersey call center.
That's actually, the New Jersey call center has actually been implemented.
Yeah.
That's in place now. So they initially started at Go Live with the 160. That is, that was only out of their Maryland White Marsh office. They launched the New Jersey center, which is right next to a college. They thought with students and other things, they might have better luck. And they also, the location was more suited to be able to get Spanish-speaking representatives, because that was an issue with wait times as well.
Gotcha.
So that has launched. The additional 35 that Jim talked about is them trying to bring on a third-party vendor to hopefully have some more stability, where their agreement would be on providing a staffing level base for a company that only does call center work, and so that hopefully that won't have the ebbs and flows that they've been experiencing with losing employees. As the mailing of the backlog tolls continues, the volume of calls has significantly increased. The what we call PNOTDs, these are when we issue a notice of toll due initially electronically on the system, where you can log in and view it and pay online. People can receive a 15% discount at that point. After we mail it, they lose that ability, but that is oftentimes the first time that somebody really engages with us. The PNOTDs, when they were available online, started in April. We didn't really start mailing heavy until the end of July. And you can see from the graphic that, basically from that go live point, the June, July, August timeframe, we were hovering around 4,000 calls a day. Following when we started to commence the mailing of the notice of toll due, that has spiked immensely. We're up to now where we're getting 7,000 calls a day. And so that just demonstrates that, when you're kind of asking yourselves, well, is it the website? Is it the mailings? What's causing this? We're seeing that the volume is directly correlated with the backlog concerns and the mailings of the notices of toll due. We do continue to work on website improvements. The release that was done on October 6th, so an update since the last board meeting, included some website improvements, such as the chat bubbles for the web chat are now available on all pages. They improved the workflow for customers to link vehicles and transponders to their accounts. Citations are now visible in the pay tolls page, and they fixed a bug that allows the on-the-go transponders to be registered to existing accounts, not only new customers. Additionally, they had a second release since the last board meeting, which some of the improvements that were made available is customers are now able to replenish their accounts themselves directly on the website. When the Contact Us cases are closed, customers receive an email describing the resolution in the email and the reason for the case being closed. Previously, the Contact Us emails gave a pretty generic response, and then that would generate phone calls. So they're trying to be specific with why cases were improved through the website interaction. And they also corrected an issue where customer payments were not present on the export of transactions from the website. So those payments are now visible when they do the export. They also have made some improvements for us internally, for our operation, like releasing an improvement where MDTA super users can now filter based on transponder number. So these are like little things, but they add up to how efficient the experience is for the customer and for our operations. And so when we talk about these 3-week sprints, these are the types of things that we're getting each sprint period that are being released to our customers and to us.
Will, would you like to mention the tutorials that we're putting together also?
Sure. So in addition, on the website, we've put out on the frequently asked questions section, there's a video tutorials page within that that provides a number of details where we have experienced high call volumes for things like adding a credit card, first-time logins. There's actual videos that are live recordings that show click here, click here, click here, do this, do that, and it verbally walks you through how to do these transactions, and those are now available on the website. It also explains payment methods like pay by plate, where customers are not really familiar with that. There's actual videos out there that describe how to sign up and also the benefits of that type of program. One last point here is that also a part of the call volume is dispute cases where customers are disputing historical issues with tolls that are quite old, and we carried forward from the prior vendor more than 13,000 prior dispute cases. So that's also part of the call volume issue that we're working down now. Okay, in terms of backlog processing, I do have a few updates since the slides are sent. I got to make mail out when I send these, but I want to give you the latest information that I have. So the numbers that I'm going to report verbally are even more current than what I showed here. So related to video transactions, as of yesterday, we're actually at approximately 18 million transactions that have posted to customers' accounts, allowing them to pay electronically to receive the early payment discount. But again, to receive that early payment discount for notices of toll due, they have to pay online before we actually send the mailing of that. As of yesterday, we have 6.3 million notice of toll due transactions that have been mailed, which is, again, more current from the number on your slide. And we've collected nearly 6.4 million in early payments of the NOTDs and 14 million on payments for mailed notices. We continue to mail at about 35,000 envelopes per day, which is approximately 110,000 transactions a day. We did hold back notices for customers who had more than 25 NOTDs, because again, the dollar amount would be quite sizable. We sent a buck slip out in the mail to alert them to the option to pay online to receive the early payment discount, and essentially to leverage that period as a payment method so that they can go on and over the course of a few months pay incrementally to work the number down. And we have seen where some customers have received the buck slip and have elected to do that. We continue to run our control run process for escalations to CCU and to the MVA. And then on the last slide, to kind of talk about backlog metering, the MDTA is continuing to meter our backlog at a 2-to-1 rate, and is currently estimated with the completion of summer 2022, with all of the postings to accounts anticipated to be completed within the FY22 period. And again, that's posting, that's not mailing. Mailing will lag behind, and then payments will lag behind that. We're approximately 72% complete on the EasyPass transponder-based backlog processing. Over 13 million transactions have been sent to the back office, and we're approximately 32% complete on the video backlog, where about 9 million transactions have been sent to the back office. We continue to actively work with the IAG to process the out-of-state transactions. They require a lot of work. There's a lot of different tolling agencies around the country, and each has a little bit of a special need. And so, again, backlog processing is a major issue for nearly everything that we're working on right now, and it is the biggest impact to the call center. And so it's a laser focus for us to try to get this processed. Again, we would process it faster, but that would result in larger required payments from the customers. And we're trying to strike the balance between the complaints that we get from customers that want us to go faster so that they're done with looking for this and dealing with it, and the customers that want us to slow down because they don't want to pay that much month. So that's a challenge. We're trying to, that 2-to-1 kind of keeps us to where the complaints are relatively even. And so we're doing our best to work with our customers and educate them on why this backlog exists. So with that, I know I quickly dumped a lot of information. Happy to run through anything, questions you may have.
Thank you. Well, Member Archer.
Well, thank you to your team and all the effort you're putting in. Did I understand you clearly that right now there's some negotiation going on as a contract modification with the contractor?
That's correct.
Okay, and what is that process? How does that work? Does that come back to the board, or?
That will. So
Okay.
the contract modifications are in draft form. We author them, and they're reviewed with MDTA Legal, and our procurement team actually does the authoring, and they work closely with us to kind of co-author the document. Then that's shared with the vendor. They give us their comments. We kind of have a negotiation back and forth to get to the final versions. Once they commit to signing the document, then we will come take that to the board and to BPW and through DoIT for their final approval on that modification. We don't execute the mod until after we've received those approvals, but we do need to ensure that what we bring to you for approval can actually be signed by the vendor, so they sign in advance.
Okay. I don't know if you're able to do this right now, but can you just give us a general framework of what this the purpose, or what the goals are in regards to this modification?
Yeah, so the contract had specific timelines on when what we would call phase 1 and 2 would be complete, when phase 3 would be complete. That's currently the phase that we're kind of doing all three in an overlap, but primarily in phase 3 right now, where the vendors are attempting to receive system acceptance on their part. And then you migrate into phase 4, which is the operations and maintenance period, where they get kind of routinely paid based on transactions and the like. So the contract had a schedule, and it was contemplated in the contract that these phases would not overlap. That phase 1 would be completed, then 2, then 3, then 4. Because of the schedule pressures that developed, there were overlapping of the phases to try to compress the schedule. And also the liquidated damages provisions that relate to that, and the COVID impacts and all that with the schedule has to be kind of corrected so that we all are operating on the same time basis, if you will. So the plan is to issue a non-compensable time extension so that the durations that were provided in the contract will be adjusted so that we're all working more or less on a reset on the time, so that liquidated damages and everything can be applied from there forward on a clear understanding of what the contract durations are. And then separately from that, so that's the time. Separately from that, we have to fund the contract with quantities for all electronic tolling and the backlog. When these contracts were advertised, there were options that allowed us to transition to all electronic tolling as part of our broader plan in the future to transition. But it did not include the quantities, like, for example, the processing of notices of toll due. Each one of those mailed envelopes, that they get paid based on the envelopes mailed. The quantities that were set up were smaller, contemplating that we mailed fewer.
Right.
But because of a backlog, they've got to mail more. Plus, on top of that, with all electronic tolling, many of the former cash customers who have not yet transitioned to Easy Pass or Pay by Plate, they become a video customer, and so in an all electronic tolling environment, and so that also increases the quantity. So those quantity adjustments have to be done for AET and for the backlog, and that does require additional funds in the contract to compensate for that.
And part of that, as Will said, we were out to 2027 for all AET. Now, obviously, we flipped the switch in March of 2020, so that has to be changed. But also in the RFP, it was contemplated that we would still have cash tolling. We no longer have cash tolling. We have to change that part because we have funding in those categories for cash tolling. That's going to flip to video tolling. And so we have to adjust those those funding mechanisms for this contract. So basically, we're trying to write the contract based on what's happening today versus when the RFP was let back in 15 or 16, you know. So a few things have changed the last 5 years or 6 years, so we need to make it right. The other thing that Will said is that, as we had talked before, the liquidated damages portion of this through phase 1, 2, and 3, it got meshed together, so we have to do a reset so that we can then apply liquidated damages and everybody's on the same song sheet for that.
I think the only thing I'd add too is that, just to be clear, we are writing the contract, correcting, getting us on to where we're operating under the actual set of circumstances. But the pay items that are impacted from the funding portion of it, that is from phase 4, the operations and maintenance phase. So we're doing that in advance of this becoming a retroactive approval. We're not spending money that we don't have. We're asking the approval before we get to that point. So I just want to kind of make that point clear that we don't expect at this point, pending the negotiations not lasting really a lot longer than we're expecting, these shouldn't be retroactive approvals.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any, Member Rosen?
Just one question related to 13,185 backlog dispute cases. What is the dispute process? Because that sounds like a lot of work, especially for a lot of items that are probably, $10, $20, $30, $40. So what's the process, and how can we get that cleared out? Because I imagine that's taking up someone's time who can be doing something else.
Yeah, many of the dispute cases get escalated to our internal Easy Pass operations team, what we call our account specialists. They are probably not the $40 customers, actually. They're probably the customers that have $4,000 in tolls that they just drive through and pretend that there's not a tolling system until they get a flag on their registration, and then they realize the reality of the Maryland state law. And they do take a lot of work.
So
to resolve.
13,185, that's not 13,185 customers. That could be one customer having many of those.
Yeah, I actually don't know the answer to that. I can get more clarity on what the cases mean. There certainly are cases that like one customer can have an issue where they're complaining that they got tolls, that they didn't have their transponder mounted, and so they got charged a higher rate, and they didn't think that was fair. And they also could have only just gotten their Easy Pass and had a lot of video tolls and have a separate case for that. So there's certainly cases where an individual customer can have multiple cases, but I'm not sure how the count was done here. I'll need to confirm that.
Great. Any other questions? Hearing none. Thank you, Will. Next up on the agenda is the Executive Director's report from Executive Director Reports.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the board may remember back in 2019 where we spoke about the success of our MDTA Leadership Advance that we had in Cambridge. And over the course of those 2 days, we met and we brought together all the division chiefs, division directors, including the MDTA police, for the purpose of creating a roadmap for how we, as an organization, were going to commit to the principles of leadership and workforce development. So we used a book called Mind of a Leader as a resource, and I'm pleased to tell the board that yesterday, 2 years later, we had a kickoff meeting for team number 3 of the Mind of a Leader program. There are 46 MDTA participants in this group. Each participant is given a copy of the book and assigned a discussion group. And over the next several months, the participants will meet in their selected groups to discuss the book and principles and exchange leadership ideas. I think one aspect that I'm most proud of when it comes to Mind of a Leader program is that this leadership training provides an opportunity for that's open to all MDTA employees. all pay grades, all seniority, not just reserved for senior managers. These folks are identified as potential leaders. You never know where you're going to get your next leader from, so we're looking through the entire organization. You may have heard me say before that we are not pushing it down, we're pushing it out. That's part of our philosophy, but I'm really proud of the Minded Leader program. It's going strong. We had some great presentations yesterday from some of our leadership members. Even they are continuing to learn as they move along in providing mentoring for our new leaders. But I do want the board to know that we have a lot of people involved in this program, but Kim Millinger is really the driving force behind the success of this program. She really stepped up and took the bull by the horns, if you will, and has been so enthusiastic about it. As a matter of fact, when we had our program yesterday, Kim, I didn't tell you this, but I could tell that when I was giving my spiel, I could literally see Kim's face just beaming. She was so excited about this program, and she's got a mask on, so you can't see her face beaming right now, but I can assure you it was virtual yesterday, and I could see her whole face, and I could see her beaming, and I just want the board to know what a great job she's doing, as well as the rest of the team. Kevin, I mean, everybody, Don. I don't even want to go into all the names because I know it's going to mess me up, and it's just been a tremendous program, and I think we, as a leadership team, are extremely proud of it. I know Dante also participated in our leadership advance that you heard me talking about in Cambridge. So moving on, just 2 weeks ago, October 10th through the 13th, Will mentioned that we attended the IBTTA's annual meeting. And, it was our first in-meeting conference since 2019. And I think it was pretty much, everybody was pretty enthusiastic about it. They had some high-level executive meetings that I attended. And Will and I attended several of the presentations, and it gave us an opportunity to talk to people from across the nation that are having similar problems as us. There's a lot of organizations that are transitioning their programs because they had legacy programs like us, and they're seeing some of the same things we do. They're also asking us questions about our experience, and so it was a real good opportunity for us to meet with some of our colleagues. Turning to the topic of the Bay Bridge, I want to update you where we are on Tier 1 NEPA Bay Bridge Crossing Study. So the winter of 2021-2022, we should have the complete combined Tier 1 final environmental impact statement and record of decision, which is the last former step in that NEPA process. The FEIS, or the ROD, will summarize and respond to the public and agency comments and identify the selected 2-mile wide corridor alternative. And speaking of the Bay Bridge, as just a reminder, that this Sunday, the 10K Chesapeake Bay Bridge Run Walk will be taking place. Remember, again, Jemmy, you had mentioned that you're going to do it. I'm just looking for a follow-up on that.
I'm all registered.
There you go.
Hey, right behind him.
No, he's going to be in front of me because I'm not going to be there.
I'm going to be the first wave
good.
so that I'll be done by the time the last wave comes through.
Okay.
You'll kick it off
So
and
you're gonna
close
turn
it out at the same
You're
time.
going to turn it into a real run-walk a process. Okay, well, good luck
Run
with
part
that.
of it, yeah.
Good luck with that, and
That's funny.
let us know how you make out. I also want to congratulate MDTA Police Chief Colonel Kevin Anderson and the MDTA Police who were recently recognized by MDOT MVA Highway Safety Office with the Traffic Safety Award. The MDTA Police were commended for their efforts for enforcing traffic laws for the following: participating in high visibility enforcement wave and actively working with their other agencies for these efforts. The DUI team has made, get this, listen to this, over 280 arrests this year so far for impaired driving. And I'm telling you,
Wow.
when I visit the facilities, they have lists of who's doing what. You should see some of the numbers that some of these police officers have. They're unbelievable. And these are things that have a real impact to the public, because these could be crashes and, quite frankly, fatalities. And so they're doing a great job registering 86 new officers in the Traffic Safety Specialist Program for 2021, and being a leader of the Maryland Chiefs of Police Association Traffic Safety Committee for the last 3 years. So congratulations to those guys. In my remarks this year, I've tried to highlight significant MDTA milestones as part of the MDTA celebration of its 50th anniversary. For this month, I think it's appropriate to talk about all electronic tolling. We've heard a lot about that recently. Transitioning MDTA cash toll facilities to highway speed all electronic tolling has been a strategic goal of MDTA for, quite frankly, many years, but actually decades. All electronic tolling collection is expanding in numerous states. It has many benefits. It eases congestion and results in less idling time, which allows better fuel efficiency and reduced emissions. It also increases driver safety and results in a safer work environment for our employees. 2 years ago, in October 2019, MDTA marked a milestone, meeting that strategic goal by bringing highway speed all electronic tolling to the Francis Scott Key Bridge, as well as the Thomas Hayden Bridge. The Key and the Hayden Bridges joined the ICC and the I-95 Express toll lanes, which have been operating highway speed all electronic tolling since 2011, 2014, respectively. Fast forwarding to March 2020, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, we initiated statewide all electronic tolling at our 5 toll facilities that were still accepting cash to protect both customers and employees. And then in August 2020, Governor Hogan announced that all electronic tolling would remain permanent throughout Maryland. Construction for highway speed all electronic tolling with overhead gantries and removal of existing toll plazas is underway at the JFK Memorial Highway. You heard from Will a little earlier today that we expect that to go into place next month. And of course, the Nice Middleton Bridge will be coming soon, and the Fort McHenry Tunnel will also be coming on board soon. A study is underway for I-895 Baltimore Harbor Tunnel, Toll Plaza. You heard from Will, we had to do a NEPA study because of the interchange improvements, which will allow us to have highway speed all electronic tolling to the Harbor Tunnel. We got a question on that yesterday. At the MDTA turns 50, I'm pleased to share with the board that we're well on our way to accomplishing our strategic goal of having highway speed all electronic tolling at all MDTA tolling facilities. With that, that wraps my presentation up, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the Executive Director? Okay. Well, before we move to the next item, again, congratulations, Colonel, to you and your team, and thank you each and every day for what your entire team does. You make an impact. It's very important, and just so you know that your police agency is very well respected, and we think of you guys each and every day. So thank you again. Thanks to your team. Okay, we've now reached the closed session portion of our agenda. So this closed session is scheduled for the board members and designated staff members. Per the Maryland Open Meetings Act, hang on. I got to get a vote out of you guys. Don't go anywhere. Per the Maryland Open Meetings Act, the MDTA Board will meet in closed session under the general provisions, Articles Section 3-305B, 10, and 12 to receive an update on deployment of police staff and resources and other security measures, and to discuss pending investigative proceedings involving possible criminal conduct and general provisions, Article Section 3-305B8 to receive a status update on all litigation. With that, I will entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So move, Member Cox.
All right. Okay, so I'll take Member Cox. He spoke up first. Member Gaines. Member Carroll. Are there any opposed to going into closed session? Okay, hearing none, we will now adjourn to the, are there any opposed?
You say any yeas, did you?
Well, I figured if, okay.
Aye.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Okay. Member, did you hear us, Member Von Paris? Okay.
He said aye.
Hearing that, we will now excuse ourselves to go to a closed session meeting. We will come back to the boardroom as soon as we've completed our closed session. So thank you. And we will take a 4, 5, 6. Okay. All right, I will entertain a motion to return to open session.
So moved.
I'll second
In a second. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion is unanimous. Okay, good morning. It is now 11:29 a.m., and the board has completed its closed session agenda. For the record, there were no actions taken in closed session requiring ratification. At this point, the agenda is complete. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second?
And I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Motion carries and is now at 11:29 in a few seconds. With that, the meeting is hereby closed. Thank you all.